Hi, everyone. This is your host, Kristen Howe, with Manifest Everything Now, discovering the secrets to effortless manifestation. And I am so excited to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Andi Shaw. Now, Andi Shaw has manifested some amazing successes in his life. He set a goal of being a millionaire in 2 years and achieved it in 6 months, and then became a multi-millionaire 2 weeks later. He also built a business from $0 to being valued at $17 million in under 3 years. His first online business turned over just under $1 million in its first year, and he once purchased 74 properties worth over $12 million with none of his own money in just a single year. And that's why I'm excited to share Andi with you, because he kind of shows you that what might seem impossible is absolutely possible. On today's call with Andi, you will discover how to never need to think positively again, how to stop depression without effort and overcome fear, how to get and stay motivated, removing all bad procrastination, how to slow down so that you can actually go faster. He'll give you a structured thinking technique to remove pain before it builds up, and we'll talk about why life knocks you down sometimes and how to take back control when it does, no matter what's happening. So, Andi, I can't wait. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the call.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you know, it's such an exciting thing to be able to share someone like you who, I mean, you've really, some of the things you've achieved have just been, you know, where people would look at it and go, well, that's not possible, and I love that. I love sharing that's not possible with people, because then they go, oh, that's possible, which means it's possible for them. So can you share with us a little bit about you, your story, how you got here, how you became aware of this, all this mind stuff, and I'll get into some cool questions and answers with you.
Sure, happy to. Well, basically, I was at the age of 13. My great uncle, who was a millionaire, took me to one side and basically told me my future, and he told me I was going to be a millionaire too, and I was going to go out into the world and I was going to do some amazing things with my life, and I was going to have a truly fantastic life. From that point on, I decided that he was right, and even though that my entire peer group around me basically told me that, you know, you can't dare to dream of being a millionaire and all this sort of thing, I decided he was right and they were wrong, because he already was a millionaire, so I thought he knew what he was talking about. And I just decided that that's it. I would go and create huge wealth. I went and built businesses, but I'd never, you know, at one point I had well over 100 people working for me, but I'd never made millions. And then one day my business mentor was having lunch with me, and he just said, look, Andi, all your ideas are great, but they're all lacking one thing. They're all lacking money. And something inside me just flipped, and I went, oh, well, I'll go and make us some money then. And I just went away from that point with up until that point, I just thought doing the business I was going to do was going to produce the money. And I remember what my uncle had told me, my great uncle had told me. I came away that night and I thought, I've forgotten to become rich. And it was really weird. It was like, what do you mean you've forgotten to become rich? That can't be real. But it was. And so I just set out, decided I would become rich, set a goal of being a millionaire in 2 years. You know, it was just a ridiculous goal. You know, now I teach people, whatever you do, don't set a monetary goal. But the goal to me wasn't about the money. The goal to me was about the kudos of being able to call myself a millionaire. And so that's what I was actually getting. I was going for the attainment of it. And it happened so fast it was, you know, untrue. And then it just happened. We made so much money. It was just basically ridiculous. And then we had a huge string of successes. Where everything I touched turned to gold. Then the credit crunch came along and stopped play sort of thing. And, you know, I'd built several fortunes. So it wasn't, well, I built my wife's fortune and my fortune. So my fortune went, but my wife's fortune remained. And, of course, I've, you know, been with the same lady for 25 years this year. And so we've got an extremely strong relationship, which I designed, manifested from the start. So I sat back, you know, not needing to work. I was financially free. And I thought, well, what do I want to do with my life? And so I just sat back and decided, I think people have got it wrong on the thinking side of things. And I think I can show people a way of thinking that would help. And that was it. That's what I decided to do. So I could have easily gone into any business at all. And I thought about it. I thought, right, okay, what do I want to go into? I want to go into this particular business, and I'll make lots of money at it. And I thought, well, what will I do after I've sold that business off? Well, then I'd write the books on how to teach people how to control their mindset and how to have structured thought. And I thought, well, why don't I just do that instead? So that's what I did.
Wow. Okay, cool. I love that. And I love that something you said in there I think was really powerful, and I would love for people to really hear it, is that you went, well, I could do anything really. I think that's the point of what you're teaching, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that you can actually do anything once you learn how to, work with your mind, and we're going to talk about some of that. And then it's just a matter of you get to choose. So it's not like this stuff works for you if you want to be a teacher, but not if you want to be a doctor, that sort of thing. So I love that. I think that's what a freeing thing. Now,
yes, it is. You're quite right.
Yeah, I've heard you say something that I want to talk about because it makes my head sort of go, huh? You say no thought, stand still.
Yes,
what the
correct.
heck does that mean? What is that?
Well, your thoughts either hurt you or they help you. They don't stand still. So anything that occupies your mind has to be helping you get towards your destination. Or if it's not helping you get towards your destination, it's dragging you away from it. So wherever you want to go, no thought stand still. So any thought, for example, little insignificant thoughts where people think, well, that doesn't really matter, where they're angry with a driver who's pulled out in front of them or something like that. Well, is that helping them? Well, no, it isn't. Therefore, it's harming them. And it's those sort of things. And when you can actually control every thought that goes into your mind so that you literally stop any thought that doesn't benefit you, then effectively you've just removed the need to ever think positively because you have no negative thoughts. So if you remove the negative, all that's left is positive, but it's positive without effort. So you don't have, people say to me, oh, you're the most positive thinking person I've ever met in my life. It's like, well, I don't think positively. They said, well, how can you? I said, well, I just don't think negatively. That's it. That's all I do. I just avoid negative thought because it doesn't benefit me. And when you can see that you can track it down to the benefit, and it is all just about the benefits, then you just let it go. You look at a doubt. If you get a doubt come up, and you look at the doubt and think, well, how's this helping me? Well, it's not. Well, therefore, I don't need to think it anymore. And it just dissolves. It's a process. So when you learn that no thought stands still, and every thought in your head either helps you or harms you, then you can just stop the ones that harm you. Because you look at them and think, well, how is this benefiting me? It's not.
Okay, so let me play a little devil's advocate here.
Please do.
It's not even, I'm trying to see, that's why I love talking with you, because I know you're like, come on, challenge me. So people listening, they're like, Andi, that sounds so easy when you say it, and it does. There's this element of truth to it when you hear you say it. You go, oh yeah. And then they, get off this call and they go through their day and something happens and they're like, they just suddenly get swept up by the negative thoughts. And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves, is realizing a million thoughts in that they're thinking negatively. It's like they don't catch it in the beginning. So what do you recommend for that? Because you're saying, oh, I just don't think negatively, but we're not all trained yet to catch the first negative thought and stop it in process. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. There has to be a control mechanism. I mean, first off, you have to notice that you're out of control of your thoughts. And when you notice that, then you need to first bring your mind under control. And how you do that is there's thinking techniques, for example. I mean, do you want me to go through these? They take,
Sure, that would be
you want me to go through them, yeah?
Yeah.
The first thing is, I mean, you probably read that they talk about a 15-second technique to control your thoughts for just 15 seconds when you're feeling grateful for something. So you think about a wonderful memory of something wonderful. And one with me is my little boy in an aeroplane when I took him flying when he was young. And you think about this thought for just 15 seconds, and you don't allow anything but that positive thought in your mind. Now, this sounds vague and wishy-washy, but what you're doing here is you're instilling a control mechanism so that all of a sudden you can take back control and you can just stop negative thought. This is a transition technique. This isn't the way to do it long term. The way to do it long term is just to look at the thought and decide not to think it anymore. But to start with, as you say, when you've got a tsunami of negative thoughts coming across your mind, you need a way of controlling it. So you think for 15 seconds on one positive thought. Now, when I first did this, when I first lost control of my mind and I had to regain it, I used this technique. I was coming back, I was living in Cyprus at the time, and I was coming back from dropping my children at school, and I was attempting to hold 15 seconds of a single positive thought because, I had so much stuff going on when I personally went bankrupt, and I had so much stuff going on in my mind, I couldn't control my thoughts, and I was trying to think of this one positive thought and hold it in my mind, and I couldn't think of the most wonderful thought, most wonderful thing that happened in my life. Well, one of the wonderful things, but I couldn't hold it for more than 4 or 5 seconds, and it just infuriated me. But I was that out of control of my mind that I couldn't silence my mind for just a few seconds. So I pulled the car over, and I just said out loud, right, I'm not leaving this spot until I've held one positive thought for 15 seconds. And after 4 or 5 attempts, I managed to do it. And then what happened was throughout the rest of the day and the next day, as soon as I had the negativity come up and I felt bad or anything like that, and I'd hold 15 seconds of positive thought, and I probably held it for 20 times on the first day, 20 or 30 times the second day, 20 or 30 times the third day. And every time I did this, I felt really good as I came out of it. And it was like, wow, this is good. And usually I'd got the answer to a problem just pop into my mind as well. And I thought, well, this is good. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. If I'm feeling this good after 15 seconds, I wonder what I'd feel like if I could hold a positive thought for 15 minutes. So I thought, well, and I gave it a go, and I couldn't hold a single thought for more than about 4 to 5 minutes because my mind just drifted off. And I thought, well, hang on a second. It doesn't need to be one thought then. It can be a number of thoughts. It can be, I can have a list of wonderful moments from my life. And I made up what I call the grateful list, and it's a list of things I'm grateful for. And I came up with, I think it was just under 80 things I put on this list. And so, of course, I could hold 15 minutes of being grateful, of feeling nothing but gratitude over all these different things. No problem at all. 15 minutes was just a breeze. Now, when I held that, and when I gained those 15 minutes, I had the most amazing power because I became indestructible. I was dealing with bankruptcy, I was dealing with, huge problems. It was all publicly going off everywhere and all this sort of thing. And I was in complete control. It was like I was at the most serene point of my life. And as I was going through this, a byproduct of what I was doing as I was controlling my mind was I started to see glimpses within my thoughts where I had no thought at all. I had no mind. There was no, literally, the Japanese call it satori, no mind. And so all of a sudden my mind was perfectly still without thought. And the more I practiced, the more I got to this no mind, and the more I never needed to think about the 15 seconds, because in an instant I could still my mind with no thought, and I could sit there with no thought in my mind. Now I've taught this to both my children, and both my children can do it as well. And I've taught this to thousands and thousands of people around the world now. So what happens is you've got this switch. So at any point you can switch on no mind, and so now you can control your thoughts. So when you have a negative thought come up, you switch on no mind instantly. It's like it's a thought structure because you've created a pattern in your mind, and you switch it on, and it's like, right, okay, now you're in the position to control the tsunami of thoughts, because now they just sit there. And I describe to people as, I say, well, imagine yourself sitting inside your head and the thoughts are trying to rush in, and you sort of reach out and put your hands there, and they're not allowed to come in, and the thoughts will then just sit patiently and wait. And when you can do that, you're in control of your mind again. When you're in control of your mind, you're in control of what thoughts go in it, and you can actually evaluate the thoughts, and you can think consciously instead of thinking unconsciously. And by thinking consciously, all you do is you look at each thought and go, well, is this thought helping me? Yes, no. And that's the control element.
Wow. Okay. Love that. And also, I just want to point out what you said, that you first really started working with this. You were going through so you're not someone that you had success your whole life. You were going through bankruptcy and all of this stuff. You were going through some really devastating things where I think we all find it's easy to have our brains get out of control, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, it's not like you came up with this as you just had made multiple millions of dollars and you were like, well, I just don't think, this is something you use to help you really turn things around for yourself, correct?
Well, absolutely. I was in a position where I'd always thought differently to other people. I'd always thought with structured thought, and I didn't realize what it was at the time. I just thought that way, and everyone used to, everybody around me was like, well, why do you think this way? Why do you think like that? And I was thinking, well, why do you think this way? When it went wrong for me financially, I looked at it and thought, well, what's going on here? What's going on? What's wrong? What's different? What's changed? Because I had a string of successes, and all of a sudden, everything I touched went wrong. So I was thinking, well, what's going on? And I realized that the only thing different was my thinking. And that's when it led me to realize that as we age, more and more bugs form in our minds. We take these assumptions of the people around us and the education we've had, because we're taught what to think, we're not taught how to think. And so because everybody's got the brain, we just use it.
Right.
Yeah, nobody's actually, your parents didn't teach you how to think. The schools didn't teach you how to think, they taught you what to think. And so I'd always had this ability to just think differently to other people. I'd had the drive and I'd had persistence and all that sort of thing. And when I realized that something was wrong, I looked at it and I looked at every aspect of my life, and the only thing different was my thinking. So I was able to just sit back and go, right, okay, well, let's retake control of that.
I love that, and you're right, because no one does teach us how to think. We sort of, we'll look at our parents and we learn what we think they're thinking, so it becomes this whole, it's like a game of telephone where everything's getting all morphed and confused. So I love
yeah.
It's a way to take control. Okay, so when you talk about this, is this, and I love, by the way, that you said, I don't think positively, I just don't think negatively. So is that, when you say that we never have to think positively again, is that pretty much what you mean with that?
Well, yeah, the problem is with thinking positively is it takes effort. And whenever anything takes effort, it isn't going to work properly. It needs to be effortless. It's like manifesting. If you try really hard at it, it ain't going to work. Whereas if you do it effortlessly, it'll work every time. Positive thinking is correct. That is the right thing to do, but the way it's taught isn't right, because you can't. It's got to be something that happens automatically. And any time you need to motivate yourself, motivation is a fuel. And inspiration is like magic fuel. It'll power you for the rest of your life. Whereas motivation, you need to be filled up every few days. So, if you can discover what inspires you, it's like I'm inspired, and I know you are as well. So, because we're inspired, we just keep going. Don't get me wrong, we have days when we're tired. But the whole point is you're on a mission. Yeah? And that's, you've become inspired. When you're inspired, you don't need to think positively about it. You're just doing it. You're just getting on with it. So it happens effortlessly.
So you're not saying there's anything wrong. You do want to be a person who thinks positive thoughts. It's just you use all of these techniques to get to the point where that's what is effortless. Right now, what's effortless for most of us is thinking negatively.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, I can do that all day long. Right? So I guess the good thing about that is you're already good at having certain thoughts be effortless. Now you just need to flip it around so that it's positive ones that are effortless.
Well, the thing is that we're already doing it. We're already thinking effortlessly positively about certain things. It's like we don't think negatively about going to the shops. We just go to the shops. It's effortless. And we're doing it right. We're all designed. Manifesting is what we do. That's how we live. It's just not notice. We don't notice when we're doing it over little things. Yeah, we think it's all just to do with big stuff. It's everything. It's everything in our lives. Everything we see, everything we do, everything we touch is all about manifesting. And so when you can learn to get some amazing stuff effortlessly as well. I was on a cruise. I said to my business development manager, I said, next year we need to find somebody who can introduce us to the right people over in the US. We need to find somebody that can introduce us to a high level on the speaking side of things. And we need to find somebody that can introduce us to the TV and the magazines, everything like that. And so that was it. I didn't give it another thought. So in other words, I'd set my intention. And what happened was we went on the cruise. The first two people we spoke to, one of them is connected right at the highest level of Hollywood and all this sort of thing. Another one's She speaks on stage to 25,000 people. She's regularly invited. Another lady, she deals in all of the media. And these were the first, two of them were the first two people we spoke to, and the other lady we spoke to on the second day. Well, you know, that's manifesting, because we did it effortlessly. I set the intention and let go of it, and guess what?
There it was.
Yeah.
I love that, and it's such a perfect example. Okay, so now a lot of people are struggling with depression or just really, really, you know, negative states of being. So it's not just negative thoughts, you know, it's a real depressed energy. So You say that you can stop depression without effort and you can overcome fear. Talk to me about that.
Okay. Depression is created by the mind, yeah? You know, when you actually, you've, by not thinking correctly or not being trained how to think correctly, you allow depression in and you allow your ego to control. Now, it's an unconscious allowing, so it's not something that you can say, well, aren't you silly, you've let this in, right? Well, no, you can't say that aren't you silly to anyone, because it's something that's a byproduct of the chaotic way our minds work. And so when you actually can slow your thoughts down and you understand that no thoughts stand still, and you can use the trigger which we talked about where you can switch your mind still for a second, then you can start to analyse what you're depressed about. And you can look at it from a benefits point of view. And you just analyse the benefits. And it's like, well, I'm depressed that I've just split up with my husband or my wife or something like that. Well, okay then. Well, how is it helping you being depressed about that? Well, it's not. Okay. So if it's not helping you, what is the point of doing it? Well, and you're starting to question yourself. And, of course, I know this sounds incredibly simplified, but that's exactly what it is. It is simple stuff. I mean, my favourite testimonials are when people send me emails saying, you know, I've been depressed. I've been clinically depressed for 31 years, and you know, I've only been reading your stuff for a week, and I'm not depressed anymore. When you actually are back in control of your mind, you can choose to not be depressed. Now, you think, well, that's too simplified, Andy. Well, it's the same thing as seasickness. You can choose to not be seasick if you're in control of your mind, because you just look at it and there are ways of actually stopping it, because you can actually just talk to yourself and say, well, how is this helping me? Right? And when you actually recognise that the thoughts are coming in and they're not helping you, you just slow them down, you look at them, you think, well, is this helping me? Yes, no. Right, because there is no grey. No, it's not helping me, therefore I won't think that anymore. Then the next thought comes in and you think, well, is this helping me? Yes, no. And what happens is you're creating structures, so the same thought can't be smacked in your face too often. And what happens is your ego saves that one up, and it waits for a time when you're weak to throw it back at you at that time. Because you've created this thought structure where you realise that thought is insanity for you to continue thinking it, then it takes no effort to, you know, it's like eating cardboard. As a child, I'm sure we all stuck cardboard in our mouth. You know, we stuck cardboard in our mouth and we tried to chew it, and we went, there's no point in chewing that. It doesn't taste very good. So we learned a thought structure that cardboard was no good. So all you're doing with depression is you're creating that thought structure, because you're analysing your thought, seeing that it's of no value to you, and then once you've noticed it's not no value, you've created the power of awareness, and the awareness means that you won't repeat the same mistake. Now, it takes no effort to not repeat that mistake again, because you've created a thought structure, a really tiny one, that basically says, oh, if I think that she doesn't love me, well, how does that help me? Well, it doesn't. So you don't think it anymore. You drop the thought. Moving on to the fear thing. Have I covered that okay?
Yeah, it's great. It's almost like, and again, you know, tweak what I'm about to say, but it's almost like when we become aware of the fact that it's not helping us, is that something that begins to shift the thought in itself? Does that make sense? Yeah,
it is. That's exactly what it is. As you notice it's not helping you, you think, well, you know, I say to people, well, just ask yourself, well, why am I doing this then? Where's the benefit to me? You look at animals, you know, moving on to fear for a second, because that helps explain this. An animal isn't afraid like a human is afraid. They're either living in the present or they're dealing with the situation. So an animal, a gazelle or something like that, is sitting there eating, standing there eating grass, and if a lion comes along, it's running away. Yeah, it's aware and it's looking around all the time. Humans have created this mess in their mind where they worry about what's going to happen, the fear, and when you actually all the monsters in the closet, so there's corners of their mind where they think, oh, I can't go there, I can't think about that, because I think everybody has had some horrible experiences in their lives and things that they don't want to think about, or things from their past, or things they're worried about will happen in the future. But when you actually go and look at them, and you open up the cupboard door and you have a look inside, what might happen, or what if I lose my job? What if I lose my house? What if this happens, or what if that happens? And you go and explore them, and you take it to the worst case scenario of what could possibly happen, and you think, well, could I actually survive this? The answer is always yes. Unless somebody's killed you or something like that, well then there's nothing more you can do at that stage.
Right.
The game's over, sort of thing. So the fear of death is ridiculous because you're not there anymore, sort of thing. But if you look at a fear and you take it apart and you let's say I'm going to lose my house, right? Okay, well let's go and look at that scenario. So what's going to happen? And you go and look at what happens with all of that, and then you go, right, well, could I live with this? Well, yes, I could. Okay. And then what happens is you go, well, what's the most likely thing to happen? And you go and look at what the most likely thing is to happen. And let's say losing the house is 10 on the scale, but the most likely thing to happen is, you have to come into arrangement with your mortgage company or something like that, and that's a 4 on the scale. Well, that's the likely thing to happen. So, you suddenly realise that a 4 is okay and you can deal with it. Now, as soon as you take fear out of the equation, by experiencing the fears, by going and looking at them, you've taken the pain out of it, the emotion out of it. And by taking the emotion out of it, you can now deal with it in a workman-style, logical way. So you're unattached to it, and therefore you're not living in fear. And by living in fear, you're manifesting bad stuff. Yeah. So when you can take the emotion out of it, and you can just go, right, okay, well, that's what's likely to happen. Well, I don't want that. I want a better scenario. Right, okay. Well, now when you're not emotional, you're not attached to it happening, and you've already accepted whatever's going to happen. You're able to just tread carefully and make moves that basically end up with you getting a better result than you would have done. So you're not manifesting the bad stuff to happen. You're now only doing things that help you. So you're not doing anything that's going to harm you. And, it's a process of tiny little thought changes which effectively remove fear. I say to people, look, fear is irrational. We all know that fear is irrational. But the problem is, because we haven't been taught how to think, we can't remove fears from our minds. An ex-girlfriend of mine used to say, you just never worry. You're not afraid of anything. And I said, well, I just don't see the benefit in worrying. I don't see the benefit in being afraid. Because when there's something to look at that could go wrong, you go and look at it. So there's no need for me to worry about it. Where's the benefit in me worrying about it? Where's the benefit in me being afraid of it? So when you actually can take those problems and you break them down to benefits, there is no benefits. You stop worrying. I mean, I got a testimonial come in the other day from a lady, and she said one of the people on my membership site had just died, and he'd been in personal development for 50 years, and he said, I've never experienced so much peace in my entire life since starting out on, doing the bug-free minds process, because he'd been able to take worry out of his life and take fear out of his life. Because once you've evaluated it, you see it as irrational. Or once you see it as irrational, you don't have to put any effort into not being afraid or not worrying, because they just dissolve.
And like I said before, you say it, and there's just this element of truth to it, where it's like, yeah, of course. And so you are definitely speaking to that sort of inner truth in all of this. Okay, talk to me about motivation. You mentioned it before, that there's the difference between motivation and inspiration. You say, that there's a way to get and stay motivated and remove all bad procrastination, which I guess my first question is there such a thing as good procrastination?
Sure, there definitely is. We all use good procrastination. We just don't realise we're doing it. When we're unsure about where to go, a decision, let's try and give it a different take on it. When you don't know what to do, a friend of yours, Dr. Robert Anthony, said this, and I think it's bang on. When you don't know what to do, you should do nothing at all. Yeah, because when you do nothing at all, you're waiting for inspiration to strike. You've given your mind all of the data that it needs, and your subconscious mind is basically filtering out what needs to happen. And this is good procrastination. So at the point where you can just give it more data, yeah, or sit back, or you go, you're on a subject, you can't figure out the answer, walk off and go and do something else. Come back to it in 10 minutes' time when the inspiration strikes, or in 4 days' time, or in 5 days' time. Inspiration will strike. As long as you've given it enough data, inspiration will strike. This is good procrastination, because you're actively procrastinating, waiting for your subconscious mind to spit the answer out to you. And the answer comes, and you feel it's, I describe it as like you've got a bit of rope tied to your rib cage, and all of a sudden the inspiration strikes and you feel compelled to act, and you are dragged forward by this bit of rope. And that's active procrastination. That's good procrastination. You've procrastinated, but you've given it to your subconscious mind to think about. You've kept supplying it with more data about more ideas and that sort of thing. And then your subconscious mind has just inspired you with how to get there, and you're off. So yes, that's good procrastination. Here's the biggest problem of all. People don't actually know what they want. People are on walkabout their entire lives. They don't actually know where they're going. Most people think they want to be financially free, or they want to find the ideal partner, or whatever they want to do, and they're on this journey, but they don't know it specifically. Your subconscious mind is like a travel agent. It's almost exactly like a travel agent, and if you can define exactly where you want to go, then your travel agent will get you there. So in other words, most people around the world will go, I want to go somewhere hot and sunny. Well, there's no place on earth that's it's called hot and sunny, so your travel agent can't take you there. You have to define that I want to go to Miami Beach, I want to stay at one of the hotels on Miami Beach, and I want to spend this amount of money, and I want to fly with Virgin Airways. Now that's a great direction to a travel agent. If you go into a travel agent and you said, well, I want to go somewhere hot and sunny, and you gave him no other information, well, it's useless. So the first point is you've got to know where you want. Now, when you know what you want out of life, and whatever it is, because we've all got it. Sometimes it's, let's take buying a new car or something. You don't know what car you want, then all of a sudden you know what car you want. You've now become inspired to go and get that car. You've just inspired yourself to make that happen. And your goal, you become an expert manifester then. You go and make that happen. You do all that, you fill in all the details. But what people, up until this point, they need motivation to do it, and motivation doesn't actually produce the results. Inspiration does. So what you're looking for is you're looking to find what inspires you. So the secret is to find what you want to do with your life, because once you know where you want to go, you go and experience your death, and you actually look at your death and go, well, and you work it back from there, so you have everything you want in life. So you've already had it. Everyone says with manifesting, you've got to have had it first. Right. Well, you go to your death and you look at what life you want. For example, with myself, I looked at my death and went, okay, so this is what I want to have had happen in my life. Let's trace it back from there. Well, I'm inspired, and every step I take takes me towards that. Whereas I don't wander off. I don't wander off and go somewhere else. And because I've wandered off, I don't really know where I was going. And so now I need motivation to get me back on track. Well, no, because I'm inspired. I know where I'm going. So, that's the problem. People set out on their journey in life with no sense of direction. So they just get in their car and they go. And then they get lost, and they need to be motivated to go and do something again. Well, that's because they're not inspired yet. Because as soon as you're inspired, you don't need motivation. You might need some mornings after you've had a bit too much to drink or something like that. You might need a little bit of motivation. But you don't, on the whole, because you're inspired. You know where you want to go. When you don't know where you truly want to go, every step is basically a wasted step, because you could be going the opposite direction. People just don't know, because they don't know where they want to go. People don't know what they want.
Okay, you say that there is a way for us to slow down so that we can actually go faster, and I think that's just huge. How do we slow down so we can actually go faster?
Well, the first thing to realize is that rushing doesn't work. Yeah, everybody. If you look at everybody around you, you'll see that everybody's rushing. Everybody's in a rush to do this, and they want that magic bullet that's going to make them rich, or basically they're all busy and they're all rushing. And then you actually look at the success rate in the world, and the success rate is minuscule. Do you know the odds of actually somebody becoming worth a mere $1 million are 714 to 1. And $1 million is a lot of money, but it isn't a lot of money. And the odds against it are 714 to 1, 99.99% against chance. 714 to 1 is 99.999% if you go for the ultra high net worth individual. So people are rushing, but rushing doesn't do it. So if rushing doesn't do it, what does? Well, every year it goes by, you're looking at time, and you think, oh, this year's going fast. Here we are, we're at the end of this month already, and, we're 4 months into a year. God, this is going fast. Well, the problem is that it's in your mind. So because you're rushing, you're manifesting more rushing in your life. So what you have to do is you have to forcibly slow it down. And by slowing down, you actually speed up because things come to you rather than you going to get them. So you set your intention. All work should be done in the mind anyway. You do the work in the mind, and the rest of your time, you're just going around picking up the results that your mind has created. And so by learning to slow down, you allow your mind to do the work for you. I had an example today. We booked a holiday to come to Orlando in the autumn. And because of the way I left it, and I meant to book it last week, and I didn't book it last week, unfortunately I didn't. Because I'd looked at it and thought, well, I'll get round to it next week or the week after, something like that. And my son came home, and he had a holiday, a school trip he wanted to go on. And because he wanted to go on that school trip, it meant that I couldn't have gone on the holiday I wanted to go on in the week I did. So because we then had to move it to some other time, we ended up saving 25% on it. But because I was doing it slowly, I wasn't in a rush, I wasn't worried, I wasn't stressed, I wasn't doing it, automatically it worked out better, because I'm not in a rush. I don't do anything in a rush. If anybody asks me a question, if you ask a bank manager, I need a decision, yes or no, then the answer is no. That's the way people should be. Everything should be done as slowly as possible, because when you do things slowly, you actually get further faster. People are so busy doing things, reading the next book, rushing to get to the end of the next book and that sort of thing, but they don't make any progress. The secret isn't to get to the end of the book. The secret is to make change and make progress happen in their life. And that's the difference. And when you learn that there is no need to rush, because rushing doesn't actually work, you can slow it down. You can basically go a lot faster. I know it's a paradox, well, this goes against the grain, because if I'm doing less, then that'll actually make me go faster. Yeah, that's how it works. If you rush, then you'll get more rushing and you won't get anywhere.
Right. Now, it's so funny because as you started talking about it, I was like, oh, it's so true. Whenever I feel that pressure to rush, I absolutely 1,000,000% slow myself down. I start making mistakes. I'm like, if I'm rushing to get out the door, I drop the keys, I forget to set the alarm, all of that stuff. So that makes complete sense.
Bang on, yeah.
Slow ourselves down. Okay, so now this is really important because I think people, a lot of times, and a lot of the people listening, and this is an exceptional group of people that tune into these calls, and they're all absolutely and completely dedicated to themselves, which I think is just amazing. A lot of them, though, struggle with, and we get emails about this, why, as just when I feel like I'm starting to, have movement in this area of my life, why does something come up and knock me down? So you say that, life does knock you down sometimes, but that there is a way to take back control no matter what's happening to us. So can you help us with that?
Sure. The first thing to realize is, depending on where your starting point is, when everything was going according to plan, and we were literally printing money like there was no tomorrow with everything we touched. It was great, right? And it worked. And then for about a period of 18 months, it all started to go wrong when the credit crunch happened, and the business model we were in, banks stopped lending and that sort of thing. So then you're fighting to try and find solutions and that sort of thing. You can't find it because basically the whole thing had been dismantled from the inside, if you like. And what happens is you end up then manifesting a load of bad stuff. It doesn't travel at the speed of light, it travels at the speed of crap. So what happens is you get all the bad stuff you've manifested is going to take time to come out. But what happens is if you just keep doing good stuff, and you're not bothered, you're unemotional about what's going on, what's happening. You're able to just carry on going through it, and then eventually good stuff just starts to come. And, I said to my wife after we were about 18 months afterwards, and she said, God, this is bad stuff keeps coming. And I said, oh, don't worry. I said, let's look at what's actually gone on. And we've got loads of good stuff coming now. I said, and as the year goes on, more and more good stuff. And within about 2 years, it was virtually all good stuff. And now it's almost 100% good stuff. It's very rare we get anything bad at all because we just kept doing it right for a long enough period of time, because this stuff takes a while to roll out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when someone's still like, oh, why is this happening to me? I was just starting to, what's the first thing that they can do to sort of shift their brain? Is it going back to that holding the positive thought? You know what I mean?
Yes, it's moving their state, isn't it? Because their state at the moment is, they're angry at what's going on. They're angry at the situation. That's not going to help you. So it's like, well, slow it down. Well, okay then. Well, it's acceptance of what is. Whatever's going on is, what's going on. You can do everything you can to create a better outcome, but you have to accept what is. Every one of the spiritual teachings will always teach acceptance of what's happening and surrender to what will happen. And if you can master those two, well, basically you've got a great life coming. And that's, it's very easy to say in a sentence, but it's quite tricky to actually master in life. But when you can actually learn acceptance and you can actually learn to surrender, nothing can really affect you. You're bulletproof. And they're thought techniques. Acceptance and surrender are thought techniques. And it's a process of evaluation. You look at it and you see the non-acceptance come up. And as you see the non-acceptance come up, it's, well, how is this helping me? Well, it's not helping me. Okay, so why am I letting it come into my life? What can I do to prevent it? What can I do to stop this? Well, I've got to accept it, and I've got to surrender to the outcome. But I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure that everything I do gets me the best possible outcome. So you do everything you can in your power, but you just accept what's out of your power, what's out of your control. People say, well, I want other people to like me or something like that. Well, they're not in your control. Only you are in your control. The only thing that you can truly control in the world is how you think about things. So you get that right. And when you get that right, by mastering yourself, you become a master of everything. So you work on your own mind, you get that right, and then you stop the irritations. It's not like a one-size-fits-all, but there's a thought structure, and the thought structure is this helping me? Or is it harming me? If it's harming me, well, what benefit is to me then? Well, it's no benefit. Well, if it's no benefit, well, why am I thinking it then? And then you just ask, well, why am I thinking this? Well, how's this helping me? And it's just little things like that, by asking the why. When you're bringing up children, because we all were naturally successful. We all had minds that were absolutely spot on when we were children. And when a child says, well, why do you do it like that? Why do it like that, Daddy? Why do it like that, Mummy? Right? And it's very irritating for a parent at times because I said so, right? Because the parent doesn't actually know, because the parent's got the wrong thinking structure as well. So all you have to do is you have to become that child again that you once were. Well, why am I thinking like this? Well, how's that benefiting me? You question yourself. Why are you doing things the way you're doing it? And as you question, you become aware. And as you become aware, you remove the power of the unconscious thought that you've allowed into your mind through bad programming. And that's it. Change just happens. It happens effortlessly just by you becoming aware. So all you have to do is become aware of your thoughts. And as you become aware of your thoughts, they dissolve themselves because you look at them and go, well, that's ridiculous. There's no point. There's no benefit in me thinking that. As it happens, you just, life gets easier. You stop creating pain.
Oh, I love that. You stop creating pain. That's amazing. Okay, so here's what I'm curious about. I love to find out what's possible for everybody who's listening. So if you could take a few minutes and share, and I know there are so many, but if you could share some of the amazing turnarounds that you've seen from people who have applied what you teach, that would be really, really helpful to us.
Okay. It depends on what people want. If people are looking for their perfect partner, for example. I've got a friend, a student of mine, and he came to me and he said, I'm struggling to find the perfect partner. How do I do it? And I said, well, you designed the perfect person you want in your life. And I told him the story about how I designed my wife to come into my life. I was looking for the perfect partner and how I designed her. And he said, well, how did you do it then? I told her I wrote down every detail about what I wanted in the person, what she would want in me, and everything like that. And I went through one by one each of her attributes, and I covered all of the bases. And I said to him, that's all you've got to do. You've got to design the person you're looking for. You've got to design that person into your life. So what he did was he took it on board and he just went through and he designed this person into his life, the perfect person. And he created a design that had, I think it was 187 attributes, and he covered everything. He covered, what personality, what she liked to do, and everything like this. And by the time he'd finished it, and the person was in his life, she had 184 of them. So, 99% almost. So that's pretty cool success. His financial, there was a guy in Australia, he was struggling in his business, and he'd been working at different things for a long, long time. And then what happened was he just went through the process. In the 6 months of going through it, he made 10 times as much money as he'd made in the previous, I think he said 10 years, but it might have been 8 years, something like that, because he just stopped getting in his own way. He stopped creating pain. And when you stop creating pain and you all you're doing is you're getting out of your own way, effectively, life becomes easy.
Those are fantastic, and I love that you sort of vary them because, people are really looking to manifest different things, but I think that the point that you just made is really powerful. Once we get out of our own way, because as you said, we're already masters at manifesting, and so really, it's us being in our own way that makes things seem painful and full of struggle. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. And I love everything that you share because it feels like something we can do. And so, thank you for that. You give us such incredible information, but not just information. I feel like we can all leave the call and start applying this in our lives. So that's really, really important. Obviously, there's so much more to learn. We could sit here and talk for, weeks. And what I get excited about is helping everybody who's listening actually be able to do what you're talking about and take control of their life, take control of their thoughts. There's so much more to learn from you. So I asked you to create a special offer for everyone who's listening to this call. I highly encourage you, everyone, go to Andi's special offer right now to experience it for yourself. I'm going to give you the link, and then I'll have Andi talk us through exactly what we'll find there. So the link, go to www.manifesteverythingnow.com/bug-free. And that's spelled BUGFREE. Again, go to manifesteverythingnow.com/bug-free, spelled BUGFREE. And Andi, if you could talk us through what we'll find there, that would be fantastic.
Sure. What I had to look at how people worked, how their minds worked. And the problem is that people try and create success by putting software onto a computer that's already bunged up with a load of junk on it. And so what I had to do was I had to show people how to get their mind back to the mindset they had when they were a child. When they were a child, they were able to learn to walk, and learning to walk is the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. But you did it automatically, without thought. You saw somebody walking and you just did it, and it's, to do something you have to trip over 400 or 500 times to do it. An adult could never do it. So I recognised that the successful people in the world, they had this mindset and they'd never lost it, whereas everybody else had allowed society to program them. So the first part of the process is taking people's minds back to where they were once upon a time, where their mindset was absolutely pure. And so all I did was I showed people how to remove all fear, worry, anxiety, depression, stress, overwhelm, all of the things that people say, they're difficult to remove. No, they're not. They're just a process. They're just a step-by-step. Each point is removed one at a time. And when you've got your mind into that position, you've got it what I call bug-free. And so your mind is effectively not creating pain, not putting any barriers in your way. Then it's time to move on to the next bit, which is to go and create whatever you want from life. So you're looking to become a master manifester. Now, we manifest. But I looked at it and thought, well, I looked at goal setting and everything, and I thought, well, why is it? What's wrong? Why is it only 3% of people set goals and that sort of thing? And it's because there was this association with work and pain that was wrapped into goal setting. And so what I did was I took it apart and I showed people how they actually they can design their life automatically and easily. And by doing it automatically and easily, you create what you want instead of creating a mess. And there's no pain. So in other words, you remove the work element of it, and all of a sudden it's like drawing when you're a child. You don't mind how many times you have to draw something. And that's the second part of the process is basically creating the designs for your life and transitioning from so that you can put in place like an antivirus to protect your mind as you go out into for the rest of your life. So you've always got these things that as your ego that messes your mind up basically comes back at you in a few years' time, or if something terrible happens in your life, a really bad thing happens or something like that, you need a way to be able to snap yourself straight back to having a clear mind again. And so all of the second part of it is really giving you those sort of transition techniques that allow you to get back to a normal mindset when something really bad happens. So it's a protection. It's like an insurance to ensure that your life becomes easier and more certain. And so the whole process really cleans you up, gives you a way of creating exactly what you want from life and a way of finding out exactly what you want from life, because that's the problem. Most people don't know what they want from life. And when you've found those things out, it then gives you some, like an antivirus, like a protection against you ever going back and allowing the way that you were programmed to come and get you again. And that's it, really. It's simple. It's just one step at a time, little bit at a time, just dripping it into your mind. You look at the bugs, and you'll spend more time thinking about what I've done than you will reading it. It'll be a lot of things. There's a lot of things people have read before, but it's just the missing links to making them actually practical. Because what my dad was a teacher, and what he did was, one day when I was a child, I couldn't learn something, and he just showed me it 3 or 4 different ways, and I got it straight away. And I said, well, why didn't my teacher teach me to do it? And he said, well, they don't realise that you've got to teach it so that everyone can get it. And so when I wrote this process, I wanted to teach it so that virtually everybody could get this, and they could actually apply it into their life and make all the difference, make a change.
Wow. I love that. Okay, so when people start using your program, what are the biggest benefits that they could expect to start experiencing right away as well as over time?
People don't even realise that they're not in control of their thoughts. And the first benefit is like an awakening that almost happens, within the first few chapters, and all of a sudden you start to feel it's like an electric buzz, because all of a sudden you're starting to wake up. Because most people don't realise they're actually asleep. They're sleeping through life. I call it the waking sleep of the human race, where most people are asleep and they don't realise they're asleep. That's the first thing you get is you get this sort of awareness you've been asleep. And when you realise you've been asleep, now you can start to do things on purpose. Then what happens next is I then poke the pain on worries, and I show people how to completely remove worry from their life. So you stop worrying about whether you're going to have any money, or whether you're going to find love, or whatever you worry about, that just goes. This isn't like maybe it'll go. This happens. This just happens, and it happens very comfortably, very easily. And then you enter this total peace and tranquility, where basically you enter a serene existence where you're bulletproof. Nothing can harm you. You let go of the past if you've got problems from your childhood or something like that, or you're angry with an ex-partner or something. All of that goes very, very quickly, and you just get to a point of contentment, peace and serenity of where you are. You're not, that's without you going and creating anything. You become happy. Yeah, it basically gives you happiness. Because, people said to me, how can you be so happy all the time? Well, I said, well, how can you not? Because to me that was like, well, the benefit of me not being happy is, so when you learn to control, because happiness is a choice, it's just the point of knowing how to turn on the happiness side of things. So yeah, it gives happiness, and once you've got the happiness, then you're able to just go and create what you want without creating pain. So you'll get all of that. I mean, people say to me, oh, I haven't even bothered doing the second part of the process yet because I'm enjoying the first part too much. Right? People literally love the first part because they're just serene. They're just, they've never had elements of peace in this way since they were, under 10 years old. So the big first part of the benefit, to me, it was like, well, no, obviously people are going to want me to show them how to go and create fortunes and all this sort of thing. But people tell me from feedback, and, if anybody goes to the site, there's hundreds of testimonials on there from people saying it's amazing and, it does all of the sort of thing that people have always wanted from personal development and self-help, but they've never been able to get. And all I do is I explain things in a way that just breaks things down, and it's simple. It's just a process, and that's people get. Well, they just feel happy.
Yeah, which it's so funny, and I've talked about that many times. We're all seeking. All the other stuff is great, but we're seeking that happiness and peace, and then
Absolutely.
the fortunes and the mate and all of it. That's all bonus. Like that's the cherry on top of the sundae. So the fact that is, one of the biggest, most immediate benefits is pretty exceptional. So everybody go to, I'm going to give you the link again, www.manifesteverythingnow.com/bug-free, spelled BUGFREE. Andi, you've been just brilliant. I love being able to share you with everybody. Do you have any final words, as we go off today? What is it that you absolutely want us to know or hear or have in our minds as we head off?
Rushing. Look at when you rush. Yeah. See it that there's no value in it. If you can learn to slow down, you're going to create a lot more time in your life, and you're going to have a much better life as you do it. When you actually learn to slow down, you're just going to free yourself up so much more. And you will just experience things that you're going past every day of your life that are wonderful that you're not noticing because you're rushing too much. And if you can get one thing from this, it's learning to slow down, and you'll accomplish far more than you've ever done.
Wow, I love that. Perfect. Everyone listening, really, really pay attention to that because, as I said, Andi, when you first mentioned it, I was like, oh, my God, that's absolutely, like, I saw it in my own life, so I'm sure everyone can easily see that reflected in their own. So let's all slow down and create this great sort of space for amazing manifesting. And, Andi, I have to thank you again. Everyone listening, you're all absolutely extraordinary. And, just for me to be able to do this and share amazing people like you, Andi, and be able to be here with this incredible group of people, it's just a gift, and I thank you all for it. And until the next time, keep manifesting, everyone. Bye-bye.